Hello to my Calc 3 class. I had somebody contact me, said that they were confused about lesson 14.4, changing the order of integration. And so I thought I'd make a quick video, seeing if I can do an example. I can do an example. A quick video doing an example, and see if that helps. So I'm going to do out of your book number 36, and it is the triple integral from 0 to 1, and the second interval from -2 to 2, and the third integral from 0 to the square root of a 4 minus y squared dz dy dx. And they want to change those, the order of integration to dy dz dx. So the first thing I like doing, just so I can try to keep everything straight, is I personally like putting in all of these variables to remind myself what variables are actually changing for each one of these integrals. So remember, when you're doing this, that you do this kind of from the inside out. So since the inner differential is in z, then that means that these are the variables z that you're going to plug in when you actually integrate. And so then the next one out is y, so that means the limits are in terms of y in the middle one, and then the last one is in x, so the outsidemost one is going to be in terms of x. Okay, so the next thing you should do when trying to figure these out is it's easiest to see what's going on if you draw a picture. So let's go ahead and draw a picture. So axes, and I realize drawing the picture is not always the easiest thing to do. I played around a little bit with, do you draw the picture starting in the middle and work your way out, or do you start in the outermost and work your way in? I think it makes the most sense if you do start in the middlemost and work your way in. So because we're doing dz's, it says we're going to start at 0, and then we're going to go up until we hit this function here. And so that is a graph of a half circle. So we've got this half circle going on. We're not going underneath into negative z's. And so this is saying that this is the integration we're doing. Okay, in terms of z. And then, okay, so in terms of y says, going this direction, we start at -2 and go to +2. That makes sense. -2 to +2, that makes sense. So we're doing this entire half circle, not a quarter of the circle. And then our x's, dx, tell us that we're basically projecting that forward along my x-axis 1 unit. And so if I project that forward, then we get, kind of a block piece that gets projected forward. And so we've got 1/2 of a cylinder is what's going on there. And so now we need to say, okay, well, let's rearrange this. And they want us to rearrange it into dy dz dx. So again, I like putting up my variables not equal 0. We don't know that that's 0. So I know x has to be on the outside. I know now that z has to be in the middle, and I know that y has to be on the innermost to get our dy dz dx. Okay, so looking at y's, if I start by going this direction, I'm kind of looking this direction first, I have to say, well, where do I start? Where do I stop? And, here it's going to be -2 and +2, but as I keep going up, then it's this curve that's going to tell us, or as I go even this way, it's the curve that's going to tell us where I start and where I stop. And so up here, we define that curve as z equals the square root of 4 minus y squared. If I now solve that for y, z squared equals 4 minus y squared. Z squared minus 4 equals -y squared. Throw a negative through that and kind of switch that just to make it easier. And then the last step is going to be take a square root. Well, remember, whenever you add in that square root, you need that plus or minus. And for this one, it's going to be very important because the negative side starts us here, and then the positive side ends us there, telling us where we're starting. So our y's is going to start on the negative square root, and it's going to end on that positive square root. Okay, so now let's look at our z's. Our z's go, okay, we're starting here, and then we're going to go up. We've already kind of done these, and so how far up are we going to do that? Well, we're not beneath, we're not down here at all, and so our z has to start at 0, and it's going to end at 2, which is going to be the top of our half circle. And now let's look at x. Well, notice that x is not reliant on y or z at all, and so our limits for x are going to stay the same. We're going to start at, we're going to start at 0 and then work our way that way. It's also important to note that this outermost integral has to have numbers for limits. You cannot put a variable on your outermost integral, or you won't be able to get a number at the end. So this one has to be numbers. And then another good choice or good check is you have to double check to make sure that since we did in terms of y on the innermost, then my limits cannot be in terms of y here, because we're already done with y. And so since we're done with y, then these limits cannot be in terms of y. I'm not actually going to do the integral. I'm going to let you do that, but I just wanted to talk about how do we get from one variable, one order of variables into another. I hope this helped. If not, let me know, and then I can do another example. Maybe a second example would help, but let me know.